Today we're going to be talking about Psalm 82. I've had a lot of people ask me to go over this, to explain it. So starting in verse 1, here we go. NASB 2020, let's read. God takes his position in his assembly. He judges in the midst of the gods. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Vindicate the weak and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted, rescue the weak and needy, save them from the hands of the wicked. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk around in darkness. All of the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said, you are gods, and all of you are sons of the Most High. Nevertheless, you will die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, God, judge the earth, for you possess all the nations. What? That sounds a little funky. That sounds a little weird and a little confusing. First off, it's talking about there being gods, and it's talking about there being sons of God. But I thought Jesus was the only begotten Son of God. This is great timing. I had a guy earlier today who was lecturing me, trying to say that the King James Version of the Bible was the perfect translation, that it perfected it, which is in line with the crazy pastor who is saying that the King James Version corrected the Greek and the Hebrew. This is one of the prime examples of why 400-year-old English is not always going to be the best translation of the Bible into modern day English. In the King James Version, it literally does in fact say that God is judging in the midst of the gods. Did that correct the Hebrew? See, that word that we find there in the Hebrew is Elohim. Now, Elohim can mean two things. Primarily, we see it translated in the Bible as God or gods. But that word Elohim, actually translated perfectly into English, doesn't have a single word equivalence. That word means spiritual being. So in that chapter, whenever we see it talking about the Most High God, that is talking about God, Yahweh. But whenever it's talking about the gods that are being judged, or the gods that are among God while he's judging the other gods, what is that possibly meaning? Well, again, it's Elohim. The Elohim is judging the Elohim. So God, Yahweh, is judging the angels. He's judging the demons. We see in the King James, and we see in most translations of the Bible, we see a word in Greek in the New Testament when it's referring to Jesus being the only begotten. And that word there is monogenes theos, which means the unique and one-of-a-kind Son of God. Now, whenever he is the unique and one-of-a-kind, that's the only begotten. So it doesn't mean that he was created. It doesn't mean that there's others. It means that he is the unique and one-of-a-kind Son, capital S, Son of God. See, if you're a Christian, then you have been adopted as a son of God, but you are not the Son of God. Does that make sense? But it's also in reference to angels. So if we go all the way back to Genesis chapter 6, starting in verse 1, it's getting dark and I'm blind. So, now it came about when mankind began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of mankind were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whoever they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not remain with man forever, because he is also flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of mankind, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. What does that mean right there, boys? Okay, so we see that the sons of God is also going to be in reference to angels who are having relations with humans and producing half angel, half human offspring that were called the Nephilim. Now, these angels that did this, these are the fallen angels. These are what we refer to as demons. Now, let's jump ahead to almost the end of the Bible. Let's go to Jude, chapter 1. There's only one chapter. Let's jump in right here. Jude 1, starting in verse 5. But real quick, I want to remind you, who is Lord? Jesus is Lord. That's right. Okay. Listen close. Now, I want to remind you, though you know everything once and for all, that the Lord Jesus, after saving the people out of the land of Egypt, subsequently destroyed those who did not believe. And angels who did not keep their own domain but abandoned their proper dwelling places, these he has kept in eternal restraints under darkness for the judgment of the great day. Just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, since they, in the same way as these angels, indulged in sexual perversions and went after strange flesh, are exhibited as an example in undergoing the punishment of eternal fire. Okay, so we see that the angels are the sons of God. One more in the book of Job. So now let's look at Job chapter 1 real quick. Blind. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. Okay, so we see that the sons of God is in reference to angels. And sometimes it's going to be in reference to angels that fell, that abandoned the domain, and that they did the very evil things that we see in Genesis chapter 6. Now we see that there are other fallen angels that did not get locked away because these other fallen angels did not have intercourse with humans to create the Nephilim. But the ones that did not get locked away, those ones were going out and they were pretending to be gods. They were going out pretending to be like God. In doing so, they caused people to commit idolatry, which is a violation of the first and second commandment. Sometimes, in the case of like Roman Catholicism or Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons, they violate commandments 1, 2, and 3 with their idolatry because they have a fake Jesus that they call Jesus and then blasphemously worship him. So now, if you go back to my video that I did on the Exodus, as we go through the 10 plagues, I showed you that every single one of the 10 plagues was God targeting a demon. He was targeting a false god. This is what the Bible's referencing whenever it talks about God judging the gods. Or at least this is one example. The final day of judgment, of course, whenever all these demons are cast into the lake of fire, whenever they're cast into hell, that is the final judgment of all of the gods, of all the sons of God who abandoned their domain. That is when the Elohim judges the Elohim. That is whenever the spiritual being judges the lesser spiritual beings. That is when God judges the angels. That's when God judges the fallen angels. That's when God judges the demons. So if we look at Deuteronomy 32, Psalm 106, and 1 Corinthians 10, we see that it very clearly tells us that every single false god is a demon. It is a fallen angel pretending to be a god in order to steal worship away from the real God. So this is really all there is to that. Psalm 82 is talking about God judging the fallen angels and judging among the angels. It's referencing all these spiritual beings in God's heavenly council, which we literally see that same kind of event taking place in Job chapter 1 whenever it says that they all came and Satan also came among them, meaning that Satan at the time, being a fallen angel, was still going in and out of heaven, and God was judging in the midst of the gods, or as the specific wording in Job is, that he was judging in the midst of the sons of God. But once again, Jesus is the capital S Son of God. He is the monogenes Theos, the unique and one-of-a-kind Son of God. Jesus himself is the eternal God. Jesus is Yahweh. Jesus is the God that is judging in the midst of all these gods. Jesus is the God, the eternal, uncreated creator that was judging these gods, that was judging these angels, that was judging these Elohim. I hope this made sense, and really quickly, I just want to let you know that I'm about to start doing spaces on X. Don't know when, so I'm trying to figure out what time frame is going to work best for people. That way we can do an actual Bible study. It'll be virtual, obviously. It'll be all audio, but that way we can go over parts of the Bible that you have questions on, and then you can ask me anything that you want to ask me during this about anything in this beautiful, lovely book that God has gifted us with. So make sure you follow me on X because we're about to start doing that stuff, and that's going to be awesome. But thank you. Let me know what's next. God bless.